Day and happy Victory Monday or Tuesday, depending on when you're listening to this, to all the Bengals fans out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Jungle, hosted by your two favorite Bengals fans, the Chase and Higgins of this podcast thing. My name's Kieron. I am not by myself. Of course, I'm with my brother, Philly. Phil, what's going on, man? How you feeling
Yes,
today?
sir. Man, I'm feeling great, man. First time we stacked 2 wins in a row, so I'm on a high right now for sure.
Shout out to Mike Hilton, man, the 5'8" giant. Keep stacking them. Keep stacking them, man.
Absolutely.
That's what we're doing. Back-to-back weeks, Phil. You and I have hit the road. Technically, I didn't have to hit the road this week since I am a Cleveland resident, but it was good to have you come up. First time in Cleveland Stadium would shock me. That was probably my sixth visit. I think I'm officially 3-3 now in Cleveland Browns Stadium. Um, Obviously, the big news up here around town is they'll be moving their stadium to the burbs in the next few years. I think 2029 is the slated year, but forget about them. We don't care nothing about that. This is all about the Bengals. Got that first Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Anybody who came in after them got that first win in Cleveland. Phil, before we get into the game, how was your experience at Cleveland Brown Stadium, man? What was it like your first time being there?
Oh yeah, as you stated earlier, it was my first visit to a game at Cleveland, and I had a good time. I had a great experience. I thought the stadium was rather nice. This, I mean, I'm if anyone that knows me know I'm not one to praise Cleveland, but it's a really nice scenery with the stadium being right there on the lake. Walking down to the stadium off of Third Street, I believe it was, kind of entering into the stadium. Real cool entrance there. Didn't get a chance to go tailgate, so I missed out on that experience. It'll give me a reason to come back. But overall, I thought it was a really nice stadium. I was surprised, coming from New York last week or New Jersey last week, as you stated, coming to Cleveland this week. I didn't think that I would like Cleveland Stadium better, but I think I did like Cleveland Stadium slightly better. Concessions left, the concessions were actually solid. The concessions were solid. I won't take anything away from that. I thought it was weird we couldn't find an energy drink in there when we were looking for one, so that was kind of interesting. But all in all, I think we had a great time. I know I definitely did. So I definitely plan to come back. I'll put it that way.
No doubt, man. We need that. You said that you were gonna say you were gonna come up and get it done for us, and that's exactly what
Absolutely.
happened. Yeah, great time overall in the stadium. 6 rows from the field. Had a great view, great time, great atmosphere for the Bengals fans. A lot of Bengals fans in the section. Um, Obviously, it was an overwhelmingly Browns crowd, as it should be, but there were a lot of people that made that 3 hour, 3.5 hour trip up north to go ahead and root on the Bengals, as you see in the episode title, Walk In, Take Over. That was the mindset that we went into the game with, feeling myself as we were discussing the game, walking your trap and take over your trap. That's exactly what happened. It was a little bit shaky to start the game. Felt a little bit reminiscent of the New York game where we had the ball a lot, not taking advantage and getting points on the board. But overall, we did end up clearing that hurdle and walked away with the win, 21-14, week 7, moving this team to 3-4. Finally looking like the team that we expected at the beginning of the year, even though the offense has lapsed in the past couple of weeks. But hey, doesn't matter as long as we're still getting wins and the defense has played much better. So always happy about that. Going to the game next week at home against Philly. It is disappointing that all of our wins have come on the road. So we desperately need that home win this upcoming week. But before we even get there, let's go ahead and recap this Browns game. So Phil, big news, obviously, that we have to point out because we were there. I think you and I witnessed Deshaun Watson's last snap as a Cleveland Brown, possibly last snap as an NFL player. Not sure. I don't want to put that on him. And listen, in the intros, Mrs. Chubb's first game back in the intros, they announced quarterback from Clemson, and you heard the whole stadium boo. The city of Cleveland does not like Deshaun Watson.
Not at all.
It's just evident. They don't like him at all. And obviously, he went down with the Achilles. We knew it right away from our seats, just the way he fell, non-contact injury. That's never good. And I've seen, unfortunately, I've seen players with enough Achilles injuries to where I kind of knew exactly what it was. That's the only thing it could have been because no one was around him. No one touched him. He didn't get rolled up. So the only thing usually in that position is an Achilles. And the crowd started cheering. I talked to Donovan. Shout out to D Hall. He was reaching out to me. I had a couple other people who weren't at the game reach out and ask, like, hey, so was the crowd really cheering? Yes, they were. Maybe cheered even a little bit louder when the cart came out. And you've seen all of the reactions since the game. Jameis Winston, Myles Garrett. I even saw some of the offensive linemen on the sideline, like just kind of pissed off at their fans for booing a man while he's down. That's the nature of Cleveland. That's not our business, so I'm not going to speak on it. But regardless of how you feel about them, injuries are just one of the worst parts of the game. Hate that it had to go down. Hate that anybody gets injured, but it is part of it. I'll let Cleveland deal with that. That's their karma and that's their opinions. I don't have much to say about it, but that was kind of a surreal moment, huh, Phil?
Absolutely. It's some of the most disgusting fan behavior I've ever seen. Like you said, regardless of how you feel about him as a person or as a player, that was just uncalled for. I understand these guys make millions of dollars, but no one should be treated that way by so-called supporters of the team. So it's one thing for someone to lose their job, quote unquote, but to celebrate, essentially bodily harm on someone is just absurd to me. And it's crazy. I don't know if I was shocked, but I was shocked, like kind of in the moment. It was it was wild, and
And
I think Jameis Winston had a nice piece to say. I don't know if you got a chance to see that, what he said about that situation, but I thought
yeah.
his comments on it, were spot on. So
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Phil personally, like I do, that's my brother, my right hand man. For Phil to be shocked, I affectionately nickname him Mr. Take It Too Far. If you know Phil, man, he will take things too far. He won't start anything. That's one thing I'll give him credit for. He won't start it, but if you start it with him, it's gonna go all the way there. So for him to be shocked, that says everything you need to know. It was a crazy atmosphere, but obviously it happened and we were there to witness it. It was just wild. But enough about that. Walk in, take over. What were your overall thoughts on the game, Phil?
Yeah, overall thoughts on the game. Man, salute to Chuck Sizzle, getting it sizzling, getting us off to a hot start. That was big time. I think you alluded to it just in the opening there. Another great performance by the defense. Held the Browns to I think 77 yards rushing, forced 2 turnovers. You love to see that from this defense that started the season really slow, underperforming. The offense was again outperformed by an opposing offense that was not nearly as talented. So that was a little bit frustrating. That Browns defense was probably the best defense that we've gone against this season, despite their 1-6 record now. And lastly, as far as overall takeaways, man, Zach Taylor continues to be entirely too conservative in his play calling, finishing games, closing games, taking points when they're available. And it's really been frustrating. I watch, the team that I always like to watch is Detroit. Anytime I get a chance to watch them, I want to watch them. I just love the aggression that they play with. They understand the talent that they have and they, utilize it till its full advantage. And I really wish we would find some of that aggression in our play calling and our, overall mentality. But that was my overall takeaways from the game.
Yeah, I got to echo that. It was a little weird for the second week in a row. It's almost like we took victory out of the jaws of defeat. We were in the game, and that's due to the defense. But the way our offense was clicking before the Giants game, you expect a little bit more of a separation. When you look at the total stats, you have 223 total yards by Cincinnati compared to 336 by the Browns. That was kind of absurd, kind of crazy. I did not look up. I'll have to pull those up here soon, the actual time of possession and turnover numbers. I think we won the turnover battle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so as far as the time of possession and the turnover battle, time of possession, they had the ball 34 minutes and 29 seconds. We had the ball for
Hmm.
25 minutes and 31 seconds. So again, they had the ball nearly 10 minutes more than us. As you stated, outgained us by over 100 yards. And as far as takeaways are concerned, I believe we did win the takeaway battle 2-0. I don't believe we had any. I don't think they had forced any takeaways. So I know we had the 2 interceptions, one by Hubbard and one by Geno Stone, both which were first. Geno's first as a Bengal, and Sam Hubbard's first of his career, which is kind of hard to wrap your head around. But
It is kind of crazy. It is kind of crazy when you think about it in that sense. We can go ahead and talk about special teams first because they set the tone for the game. You and I had just got settled into our seats, and then we get to take the opening kickoff. I saw the scene, like based on where we were sitting, we had a perfect view to see everything open up, and we saw the lane. Chuck Sizzle hit it, feeling myself at the same time. Both got up. Let's go. It's almost like you're watching horse racing, right? And the horse starts taking the lead, and you just get up and you get hyped. And we incredible effort. Because it doesn't look that difficult when you watch it on film, but the effort to actually contort your body to make sure you dive and get in the end zone on top of people, making sure you don't get pushed out of bounds, staying in bounds. I heard Cleveland fans rumbling. He stepped out. He stepped out. No, he did not. He definitely
right.
made sure he stayed in bounds, great balance, and dove on the inside of the pylon to get that 6. Just an incredible way for a team who has struggled with fast starts to get on the board early. I don't care what you say. I know they're professionals. I know they get paid a ton of money, but they're still human beings. And mentally, there is something there when you know that you haven't won in this stadium in 6 years. A lot of these guys were in their college careers the last time the Bengals won in this stadium. And it says a lot. And not only have we not won in that stadium, Phil, we had gotten manhandled the past few times. I
I mean,
mentioned it
just
before.
destroyed.
Yeah, I mentioned it before last season, the opening game, the rain game, as I call it. Joe's leg not all the way 100%. His first real action since he had injured the leg at camp, and it showed just a horrible performance. And then also the game before that, which I talked about, I was there that Halloween game. I was still living in Cincinnati. I traveled up for that. I had my Chase LSU jersey on because it was Halloween. I figured I'd dress up as College Chase, and we got mocked, and I had to hear it from all the Cleveland fans. So it felt good to make sure we gave it back to them. But for Chuck to come out with that kind of performance, get the juice up the energy in the on the team. I thought that was great. Evan McPherson, 0 for 1 on his field goals. He was 3 for 3 on
Hmm.
extra points. But that 0 for 1 did, it did hurt. Very uncharacteristic of him. The wind wasn't really blowing, which is part of their home field advantage in Cleveland. They're right there on the lake, as Phil alluded to. But the wind wasn't there. Actually, it was a beautiful day for October.
I mean, you
Um,
couldn't ask for better weather. It was a perfect
yeah,
day.
we overdressed. We overdressed. Ryan Rico. I mean, what can you say about this guy at this point? Um, I mean, I don't really, unfortunately, I don't keep up with punter stats.
He had
But I mean,
8
he's
punts for
yeah.
354 yards.
What I meant, yeah, 58 yards was the long. 4 of them inside the 20. He has a weird spin to the ball when he kicks it, but they're always on point. When I say I don't keep up with punter stats, I mean around the league, so I can't tell you how he is in comparison. But man, he looks like a first team All Pro,
For
first team or
sure.
second team All Pro punter. Like he's incredible. To think that there was a punter competition in camp is kind of funny now. Because
Hmm.
he has clearly won that job and run away with it. So we got to give him credit because one thing that I will say is the field position that the Browns had to start in is a big reason why we won this game. Every
Absolutely.
single time it felt like they were starting within their 10. As you mentioned, Phil, we didn't turn the ball over. So that helped us out. And when we were punting, they had to start. And the offense just doesn't. We've seen them play with Deshaun, without Deshaun. The offense is not sustainable to have your 99, 91, 85-yard drives. And our defense stepped up and did their job. We talked about Chuck Sizzle. Phil mentioned it in the game as we were sitting next to each other. Second return for a touchdown, first punt. And then he also first kickoff return, also had a punt return last year, so 2 in 2 seasons. And he also had 4 punt returns for 23
Thir-
yards, or actually I don't know how many yards. I know it's
39,
not average
39
amount.
yards.
My bad. Had some microphone issues, but great return day overall for Chuck Sizzle. Special teams was on point. A big reason why we started this game. If we don't have that big spark and it's kind of 0-0 for the first half and kind of lingering around, who knows? That might change things a little bit because we did not get things rolling until the third quarter. We didn't score any offensive touchdowns until the second half. So entered the game or entered halftime 7-6, and that was a big deal. Let's go ahead and talk about the offense, Phil. What were your overall takeaways? I know you mentioned you're not a fan of Zach being conservative with the play calling, but as we started the second half, what were your thoughts as we got things rolling?
Yeah, so I mean, the second half definitely got things rolling. Things picked up a little bit more and started converting a few more possessions. But as far as the overall takeaways, I mean, yes, we came away with the win. I already tipped my cap to the Cleveland defense, but going 2 for 13 on third down is just unacceptable. We did have a couple fourth down attempts, didn't convert on those. 0 for 7 on third and fourth down combined in the first half, really frustrating there. And the last 4 times that we've played in Cleveland, which happened again in this game, we've had 100 yards or less at halftime. So definitely, we got the fast start that we were looking for. Unfortunately, it didn't come from the offense, but as you stated, got rolling there in the second half. I think Jamar Chase and T. Higgins did a great job kind of imposing their will. Joe connected with Jamar on the go ball for a touchdown. He connected on the play over the middle, the T for a touchdown, where he burst through after the catch there. So I honestly thought Jamar and T were the best 2 guys on the field on our offense. Not saying Joe, played bad, but 15 for 25, 181 yards, took 3 sacks. Definitely want to see more from him there. But, again, a win is a win. But I think a lot of it, unfortunately, had to do with that play calling. And again, I talked about that aggression piece earlier. I would love to see some more aggressive play calling on those third downs instead of just kind of punting on third down, so to speak. It just seems like we give up on any third and long situation, and it's just kind of frustrating.
Yeah, you mentioned the key number that stood out to me: 15% efficiency on third down. That's just ridiculous. That just can't happen with this high-powered offense. I think a big part of that, and I feel like we say the same thing every single week, Phil. We talk about this run game and how we need to get it going, and we need to make sure we stay consistent with it. When you look at the numbers, Chase Brown's 15 carries for 44 yards. You mentioned in real time at the game, you thought you didn't necessarily like the fact, you didn't dislike, but wasn't necessarily a fan of Chase Brown getting the first carry compared to Zach Moss. We talk about the importance of that being a 2-headed monster. Speaking of Zach Moss, 6 carries for 7 yards, a long of 3 yards. Running backs are like anyone else. Uh, they're like opening acts in music. You got to get things revved up. You got to it opens up everything when you can establish a run. And when you only get 6 carries, that's going to be difficult as well. Shout out to Chase. He's definitely earned those carries. I don't want to say that, but for to have that big of a balance or a misbalance, should I say? Imbalance. I guess that's the correct word. I promise I'm smart, y'all. To have that much of an imbalance, I think, is a little bit troubling. I don't want to see Chase Brown as our every down back. Like I said, he's much better when he is complimentary. I'm not saying that he has to get less carries than Zach Moss, but Zach Moss shouldn't be getting 6 compared to Chase Brown's 15. Also, there was a moment in the game when I looked over at you, Phil, and I said, listen, we've never coached a down in the NFL. We're fans. We're super fans. As you always say, fan is short for fanatics. I think we're both
Absolutely.
qualified for that. However, we do know the game and we know it well enough to say, hey, if we're sitting in the stands and we know what adjustments to make, why can't you? The inside zone was not working. We're running at their strength. Anytime we ran outside, off tackle, on the edge, we tended to have success. Jamar Chase's only carry 11 yards on
Yep.
like a jet sweep. I actually just saw the Buccaneers run that same play with the rookie from Washington. I can't remember who it is. Mc
McMillan.
something.
Yeah.
McMillan, yes. I just saw them run the same play on a 3rd and 2. That play works. If you play college football on the new video game, that play is in there, and it is a big play that you can run. But back to real life, I just think that rushing attack needs to open up some, especially when you don't have it. As much as I dislike Cleveland, I do have some respect for their defense and for their secondary, and you're going to help your guys the more you kind of get into it. So we got to fix that. I mean, we do have to have some balance. I guess when you don't have the ball that much, there's not much you can do. Joe threw it for 25 yards, as you mentioned. We rushed for 22. And I'm not counting the 3 attempts by Joe because I think those are all sacks. Another thing, you were fired up, Phil, about Joe. Phil, Joe held onto the ball a little too long on those sacks.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of been the same story as it has been, Joe has that tendency of always trying to make a play, trying to hang on to it, but there's a lot of times where he's pumping and pulling the ball down where the play is there, the guy's open there in the flat, just make the easy play and trust your playmakers to make a play. There's no reason to stand back there and take those sacks, especially against a defensive front like this. So yeah.
Once you plant that foot, you let it rip. I mentioned Zach Moss and his rushing. I did want to highlight him on the receiving end. He did have 3 receptions on 3 targets for 33 yards. Shout out to all the threes out there. Long of 19. So he did well in the passing game. Just want to see him. I didn't look at his actual snap count compared to Chase's. I don't know if you have that in front of you or not, but if not, I just want to see a little bit more activity. Like I said, not a ton, just a little bit. I do think he's a valuable weapon for this offense and can provide some things. But if they're going to take the approach of, hey, let's see who has the hot hand week by week, then I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I just definitely want to make sure both of them are involved.
And the snap count was pretty even. Chase Brown had 31. Zach Moss had 27. So just 4 difference in snaps there. And as you stated, just to kind of piggyback on what you said, Chase Brown with 15 carries for 44 yards. One of those carries went for 22 yards. So the other 14 went for 22 yards. So, I used to think, just piggybacking on what you said about us talking about the type of runs that were being called. I used to think that Zach Taylor had something against Joe Mixon because of he never called plays to his strengths. And he's doing the same thing with Chase Brown. So it's just, I just don't understand it. He gets in a press conference and he's like, "Oh, we were just on some of those plays. We were 1 or 2 blocks away." Well, get away from having to deal with that. Get your speed guy on the outside, like you said with Chase there. So I never want to see a game where Chase Brown has 15 carries and another 2 targets and Jamar Chase only has 6 targets. I never want to see that. I never want to see a game where Jamar has less than 8 targets. Really, I never want to see a game with him having less than double-digit targets. But when when you only throw the ball 25 times, I get it. So yeah.
And it wasn't like you said, 25 passing attempts. It wasn't. I mean, T had 8 targets. Jamar had 6. Zach had 3. Chase had 2. And then you have Gesicki with 1. Drew Sample with 1. Yoshi only 1 target.
Yep. And it was that big play that Denzel Ward broke up,
on the right sideline, the Bengals sideline, depending on where you're watching it from. Eric All had 1 target, and Tanner Hudson had 1 target. The last 4 names I mentioned, Sample, Yoshi, All, and Hudson, 0 catches on those 4 targets. And then like even Gesicki, his 1 target went for 2 yards. So wasn't necessarily the biggest game from the passing perspective, but when you have T. Higgins and when you have Jamar Chase, that tends to be all you need. You mentioned it, Phil. You don't like the fact that Jamar got 6 targets. I know he was double teamed a lot. The Browns tried to disguise it some. They had that safety over top, which is a clear indicator that, all right, and this goes to your point earlier about Joe holding on to the ball. Joe's a smart quarterback. He's Brady-esque when it comes to reading the defenses. I think we made the comment earlier about in training camp, one of the teams said he's the only quarterback in the league that would have figured that out as far as a team trying to disguise their defense in practice. However, when you know that Chase is being doubled, you should automatically know exactly where that ball is going to prevent some of those sacks. When Chase is one-on-one, you give him the ball. It's that simple.
Absolutely.
Because he doesn't get that many opportunities. So one-on-one coverage, I'm going with Chase every single time. We saw that on the touchdown play when he did the AI step over. Probably one of my favorite Chase moments as in his career as a Bengal. You also have as I've affectionately nicknamed him, I know, Phil, you've adopted him, top shelf T. Put it on
Absolutely.
the top shelf where the kids can't get it. He had one of those catches where I know you always say it, Phil, those aren't 50-50 balls. Those are 80-20 balls. And T's coming down with them a majority of the time. T. Higgins, 4 receptions, 82 yards and a touchdown. Jamar Chase, 5 receptions, 55 yards and a touchdown. There's no way we can't keep this duo together. We've got to keep them together. We said it last week. I'm going to keep saying it every single week. T is, dare I say, he's been outperforming Jamar since he's been back from his injury. And that's saying something because Jamar is having first team All-Pro, a first team All-Pro type of year. But T opens up so much for the rest of that offense. And we saw it in those first, 2 games? When did he come back? Against the Commanders?
Yes. Yep.
So those first 2 games compared to where we are now, we saw it. And even that Commanders game, we said it. We're 1 stop away from winning that. There are no moral victories and shoulda, woulda, couldas, whatever. But the offense looks different when you have both of them on the field. They're obviously close. They celebrate each other. And, man, we got to figure out a way. I know that's a ways away. I know, Phil, you're in the camp of let's tag them again. I don't care.
Whatever you got to do.
Whatever you got to do to keep them together, man. So I am it was pretty good. I will say, overall, our offense does have to pick. There needs to be a little bit more urgency with the game plan and coming out early, especially when you have something like that Chuck Sizzle return. That should juice and motivate you to come out and just pile on. We talked about how many times the Browns have just put their foot in our behinds. We want to return that favor. And I was expecting that and hoping for that. But we'll take the 21-14 win. It really wasn't that close. Jameis came in garbage time to throw an actual touchdown pass. He was the only quarterback to throw a touchdown after DRT came in and did his thing for us for the Browns. Offense got a little bit of movement in this first half at the end when he came in because obviously the game changed once Watson went down with that injury. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. As far as the offense goes, not the most exciting performance, but we did get the job done. What you got, Phil?
I did want to shout out the offensive line for pitching the shutout against Myles Garrett. He did have the 1 tackle for a loss, but only had 4 tackles on the day, no sacks. As I stated in the lead up, he's been dealing with some feet issues, and I was just proud that they didn't allow him to wreck the game. So just wanted to shout out the offensive line there.
Yes, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball, which I'm going to say right now, player of the game. I mean, are you tired of saying this yet?
Not at all. I'll get on here and say it every game if we got to. Big play Trey,
Florida Atlantic University's finest.
Yeah, 9 pressures, 2 sacks, forced an intentional grounding. So yeah, the defense had a season high 4 sacks on the game. So was definitely satisfied with the defense's performance from that standpoint for sure.
I know this is your area, Phil. I don't want to step on your toes, but I saw this before we started recording, and I had to bring this up. I saw a stat that just blew my mind.
Absolutely.
You might have seen the same thing. The Bengals with the most 2+ sacks in franchise history. Did you see this stat?
I didn't.
Carlos Dunlap has 12.
Okay.
Geno Atkins has 11. Ray Hendrickson has 10.
Wow.
Dunlap played 155 games. Atkins played 161. Trey has played 55.
Yeah. I was going to say like 48, but yeah, 55. That's crazy. That's insane. You said he's got 10?
Yeah, he's got 10. He's got double digits already in 55 games.
That's
2+ sacks. Insane. Yeah. It's really absurd how good he is. I remember, once again, shout out to Donovan because I know he's listening. Probably one of the few people who aren't a Bengals fans that check us out. Shout out to him for the love. But I remember maybe 2 years ago just telling him, like, yo, Trey is top 5. Like, easily. Like, it's not that's when everybody was kind of like, all right, man, whatever. Like, do it again. Like, do it multiple times. I'm telling you, and I'm putting up the stats against it. And I'm glad that now everyone is getting that national record, or that he's getting that national recognition as being one of the best game records. I don't know where we'd be without him. It's one of our best. I haven't sat down and thought about this, Phil, but maybe the best free agent signing that we've had.
Yeah.
Since I've been a fan.
Yeah,
Like honestly, and I mean that sincerely.
I won't argue it.
Yeah, we don't sign a ton of big name free agents, so the list I'm sure isn't the longest. I know obviously you had like the TOs of the world, but he's well past his prime at that point.
Yeah.
But to just have someone like Trey, you didn't know once you signed him how much of an impact that was going to make. And man,
Mhm.
if you get him some help on that other side, which I thought Murphy played. Murphy was actually in pass coverage.
Yeah.
Murphy did the quarterback strap.
Yeah. Strap it
Shout out to
up.
Murphy, man. Hubbard, as we mentioned, he got the interception.
Mhm.
Obviously, this is a Cincinnati podcast. Hubbard's a Cincinnati kid, born and raised, Moeller High School, played safety in high school on
Mhm.
a state championship team. I don't know I know those teams won back to back in 13 and 14 or whatever year it was. I don't know if he was a part of both of those teams or one of them, but he was a safety before he converted to defensive end at Ohio State. So it's always good to see him have success, not to mention get his first interception. Um, One thing about the Bengals that I will say, anytime that ball is tipped up in the air, I expect us to come down with it. We've done it over and over for the past few years. I don't know who got their handle. Oh, actually, nobody got their hand on the ball. It hit the Browns receiver because the pass was thrown a little bit behind him, and then Sam was able to take advantage and get that. When you told me in the game that it was his first career interception, that just didn't seem right. Just didn't seem right. Didn't seem like it was possible, but you're absolutely right. It was. So shout out to Sam Hubbard as well. I thought the DBs overall, we mentioned it. That's one thing that we need to kind of clean up. DJ Turner, man, I don't know what you got to do. Start turning your head around, please. Please start
Yeah.
turning your head around, man. Like it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of penalties. Their Chubb, I believe, was that the Chubb touchdown that was set up, I think, by a pass interference
Yes,
because
it
of
was a
DJ
pass
Turner.
interference in the end zone by DJ Turner. Yep.
Yeah, please start getting your head turned around. But overall, I can't say too much about the actual defense. I think Turner is going to get better. We're going to see Jordan battle because of the Geno Stone injury. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad. But Jermaine Pratt, as always, he had
10
10
tackles.
tackles. Logan Wilson had 6, which is an abnormally quiet day for him. And then you start teetering off Mike Hilton and Cam with 4, Geno with 3, so on and so forth. Geno had his interception, as you mentioned, along with Hubbard. And then Trey had the 2 sacks as well. Held them to 77 rushing yards. Like I said, 259 passing yards, but some of those were in garbage time. Thought the defense stepped up once again and showed their keep. Or, they got tired of people talking
Mhm.
down on them, talking down on their name. They finally showed up to play.
For
We
sure.
can get this defense mixed with the offense we had the first few weeks of the season, then it's really going to go up. And I think we're really going to be able to start putting some of these games together. Obviously, it's week by week, but I thought it was another solid performance by the defense. Take it with a grain of salt. The Browns' offense just isn't that good, but a win is a win, and success is success. I don't care how we get it at this point. We're trying to stack those wins and get back to 500 and beyond. What were your thoughts on the defense? Anything additional that you wanted to mention about them?
It's just really good to see the defensive line back healthy, seeing that disbursement amongst the snaps. Um, Hendrickson had 59 snaps, Rankins had 50 snaps, which, he had his first sack as a Bengal on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Hubbard with 45 snaps, Miles Murphy with 34 snaps, Jenkins with 32 snaps, and Joseph Osai with 30. And then also the other rookie, McKinley Jackson, with 22 snaps. So really, really, really good to see that defensive line get healthy. Obviously, that's contributing to the success that the defense has had these past 2 games. With that healthy D line, definitely helps out all levels of the defense. So really, really good to see there. And again, want to highlight Geno Stone getting his first interception as a Bengal. He had a pretty scary injury scare. But glad that he seems to be doing okay. And I'm sure we'll circle back to injuries maybe at some point, but was overall impressed with the defense's performance, and they definitely did their job.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about those injuries right now because you mentioned the defensive line, which made me think of BJ Hill, who got poked in the eye. He was down. Speaking of which, I know we talked about Browns fans and their display towards Deshaun Watson. I visited a lot of stadiums in my lifetime for NFL games. Brown fans are my least favorite. They just are. They just are. I don't. You have to go to a game to really understand. It's not like hey, you're still talking and you're this bad. I actually respect. I respect Cleveland fans for enjoying their sports teams as much, but they're just nasty, man. They're just not. This is not fun to be around. That mood and that energy, that constant losing. And I'm not even. This is no shade, man, but that constant losing it wears on them, and they kind of like
Yeah.
hurt people, hurt people, and they display that hurt. Man, there were some nasty things being. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I don't care what's going on. I don't care if it's my biggest rival. Like if somebody goes down, you show them that proper respect. Your team, opposing team, but what can we expect if you're booing your own quarterback like that? You should know everybody else is nobody else is off limit. But for BJ to go down and somebody yelling out from in our section, like man, get your soft bleep up, like get off the field, like come on, bro, like somebody who's
Right.
probably never played a down of football in their life.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Would cry hurt as soon as the first contact was made. It's just stuff like
Mhm.
that. I've been to Pittsburgh Stadium, which is the Pittsburgh fans are actually cool. They bought me drinks. That maybe because we were getting
Um,
stomped.
amazing fans. I mean,
One
probably
of
the
my
best sports fans that I've ever been around, and I'd hate to say that on the Bengals podcast.
I do hate to say that, and I love that stadium. I just love. I don't care what you. We're not. Listen, we're Bengals fans, diehards. You're never going to convert us. One of the weirdest things to feel in myself is how can you be from Cincinnati and be a Steelers fan? I get that the Cowboys and Steelers had the '70s in the chokehold, so a lot of people's dads were Cowboys or Steelers fans, and they kind of inherited over time. But that's just weird to me. But I will say, as visiting that stadium, you got to respect the aura. You got to respect like what they've done and the legacy of that franchise. Um, I've
Mhm.
yet to see a win. I've only been once, so I haven't seen a win there yet. But that's going to be one of my proudest days is going into the Steelers Stadium and getting a dub. I'm trying to convince Phil to come with me December 18th or whatever date that we will be playing up there um, to go ahead and watch that victory. But that's neither here nor there. I say all that to say BJ Hill got poked in the eye. I'm glad he's okay. And then we had a couple other scary injuries. Orlando Brown, our starting left tackle, once again, another player who's playing at all pro performance. He dodged a major injury. He gave the thumbs up in the locker room saying that he was going to be okay. Geno Stone, it looked like they brought the card out. It looked like it was going to be much worse, but it turns out it's just a shin injury. He was walking around in the locker room on his own power. So both of those guys, they might miss sometimes, but it's not going to be season ending or anything substantial, which is what we don't need. We can afford. I won't say afford, but I think losing Geno wouldn't hurt as bad as it would losing Orlando. But to have both of them still be okay and knowing that we're going to get them back, that says something big about our injury state. Shout out to them. Um, yeah, and I think, like I said, I think Battle's going to be getting a lot more time. Let's see how the young boy does as he gets into things. Trying
Absolutely.
to think of what else. That's all I have on the injury front, Phil. What else you got?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and I don't want to step on your statement, but there's definitely much more concern
Go
if
ahead.
Orlando Brown has to miss time versus Geno Stone. Very confident in Jordan Battle, not confident at all in Cody Ford. I honestly don't even think he should be rostered. So, in my opinion, I would like to see the Bengals make a move to get a swing tackle because with Orlando Brown dealing with this quote unquote calf strain or tennis leg. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 4 weeks. Calves are tricky, kind of like hamstrings and groins. Really, any of those lower extremity strains are just really. Everyone is different, so it's really hard to kind of get a gauge on that. Also barring that there's no setback. So really would like to see them do something to address that swing tackle position. But that's all we got on the injury front. Definitely happy that Geno Stone seems to be okay. I'm sure they'll both be somewhere between doubtful and questionable, but I'm glad that they were able to dodge major injuries there. So.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. Any Phil stats for the week?
I actually don't have anything. Well, I got one actually heading into this Philly game, and that is that Joe Burrow is 10-1 against NFC opponents in his last 11 starts. So definitely looking forward to Joe continuing that. The only thing that I have from this Cleveland game, as far as the stats are concerned, we had already touched on it with us being with it being the first divisional win of the season and our first win in Cleveland since 2017. But moving forward, looking for Joe to continue his hot streak against the NFC as we face a Eagles opponent that's kind of in the same spot as we are. So I think it's going to make for a really interesting game.
Yeah. Speaking, that's the perfect transition into this next week, which we have. We had the Eagles coming into town. We mentioned it was going to be a 4:25 game. They moved it to 1:00. Phil, have you confirmed if you're going to make the game?
Yeah,
I am going to make the day before.
I am going to make the game. I mean, if anything, I may be a tad bit late, but I definitely will be leaving Detroit bright and early, pre-checkout to make it back in time for the game. So looking forward to the whiteout. I think it's going to be electric in the stadium, despite it being a 1:00 versus 4:25 game. We're obviously biased, but the energy in Paycor Stadium is electric 9 times out of 10. So really looking forward to it.
Speaking of, shout out to Mrs. Colston, first lady of the
Always,
pod.
always.
First lady of the pod, who mentioned at the game, I don't know, just feels like they're a little chill. I feel like Paycor got more energy than this. And I will say that, man, there is, you take those home games for granted when you go, until you go to another stadium. And having this be 2 weeks in a row where you're at the Giants Stadium and you're at the Brown Stadium. Now, I don't know if that's because of the state of their team, whatever. But Paycor, even when we're down, it's rocking in it. It is rocking in Paycor. The home field advantage is real. Like you mentioned, there's nothing like a whiteout game. There's nothing like a theme game, whether it's Ring of Honor, whiteout, Strike the Jungle, prime time. Anytime we have any of those, we're going to put on a show. The fans are going to show up. So I'm looking forward to that. I will say, I don't like I would have loved to catch the Eagles coming off that Browns game versus catching them after this Giants game. They had a very convincing win. The morale is up. They feel good. Maybe that's going to have them take us for granted a little bit. But the one thing I will say as far as keys to the game, the Eagles secondary is not good. They are not good. I know they have big names, but at this point, they are just names. Darius Slay is not the same Darius Slay that we knew. I think that we can take
the
advantage.
Darius Slay that we knew wouldn't cause fear for me against Jamar T. So
nah, that's a fact. That's a fact. And I'm hoping that the Eagles think that their secondary is better than what they are, and they do have some one-on-one coverages for our guys. Because if that's the case, we're gonna see Jamar. We're gonna see a Marlon Humphrey on Jamar Chase type of game. If you want to play him one-on-one, you would quickly put that to bed because he will go to work. And once again, you can't double both of them. You can't double T and Jamar because you still got weapons and things like that. So our passing game has to get on point. We talked about it the past couple of weeks. We can't have the ball that many times and not produce points, and not just points, but touchdowns, because we do know for sure, as we looked at these time of possessions the past couple of weeks, I mentioned it, especially with the Giants game. If I just looked at the box score, I expect us to lose that game based on time of possession. Browns almost had the ball 10 more minutes than we did. The Eagles are going to run the ball. That is what they're going to do. All right. They're going to work in some passes. Obviously, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, but their identity is going to be running the ball. Saquon's coming off a huge game. They want to build on that. Jalen Hurts, obviously. Defense just has to keep doing what they've been doing. Be aggressive, stop the run. DBs, get your head turned around. Make sure we cover the middle of the field, cover the flats. That's been the biggest soft spot in our defense, in my opinion. And get our hands on balls. We have to create turnovers. This is a defense that has to create turnovers for us to be successful. I don't think the Eagles' offense has been that impressive for the year. I think they have some of the same struggles. You kind of alluded to it, Phil, where we're kind of in the same boat. They've had some of the same struggles as the Bengals, where you have more talent than what you're showing, and they just walk away scratching your head like, what's going on?
Yep. And they dealt without A.J. Brown early in the season, getting him back. Got explosive playmaker like Saquon Barkley. So I think it will be important for us to get off to a fast start like it was this past week, because we know even though they are struggling right now, they do have the players to be explosive. So Bengals have done a good job limiting explosives, but that's always something that can happen.
We should have at least 17 points by halftime, and I'm lowballing that.
Hey, I won't
I'm
argue with you.
lowballing
I
that.
mean,
I'm
I think
honestly,
we should put up 30 every week. So 17
yeah.
in the first half is
There's no reason
on
why
par.
we can't score 3 touchdowns in that first half.
I
Um,
agree.
like I said, you do want to make sure that you have some balance. Once again, inside the interior of their defensive line is their strengths with those big tackles, but we can take advantage of some of those outside zone plays, getting the ball on the edge, and then once again, some of those quick hitters. I like to see some quick screens. I've said
Mm-hmm.
it once, I've said it a million times. Those quick screens are just extensions of the run game. I think we opened up the game last week. Our first play against the Giants was a quick screen at Chase, not Jamar,
Yep.
but Chase Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even if you want to get Jamar in those performances or in those areas to get the ball in space, man, just take advantage of that. But I definitely see this, especially winning 3 of our last 4. I see this as a very winnable game, and I
Mm-hmm.
expect to leave there with the win, get the first home win of the year, and then
Mm-hmm.
go into the Raiders game at a 500 record, and then the sky's the limit from there. We're right back into things. Um, I know we've cut ourselves short in the division, but that doesn't mean that we don't have other areas where we can still catch up, compete for a wild card, and we still have to play the Steelers twice and play Baltimore one more time at their place. So
Mm-hmm.
everything's up for
Mm-hmm.
grabs still. Nothing's unwritten, and we'll see how that goes. We're still waiting on Hard Knocks. We will be discussing that. I haven't even heard an announcement about when it's going to drop.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
Me
it's
either.
probably going to be towards the latter part of the season, once they have enough footage, because it's on the AF. This is something new that they're doing. They're
Mm-hmm.
covering the AFC North, and I don't know if it's just the teams or they actually want to cover some of these division games. I'm not sure the format, but as I've told you before, Phil and myself will be here to discuss it once it does drop. With that being said, I gave my game ball out. Phil Trey Hendrickson once again gets the game ball for this one. Did you? Who got your game ball this week?
If I'm giving out one, it's gonna go to Chuck Sizzle, man. It's gonna go to Charlie Jones for
Mm-hmm.
getting the game started off with that 100-yard touchdown return. Great job by Darren Simmons scheming up that play, putting in Drew Sample instead of Chase Brown on the return to kind of lead block, essentially function as a fullback and run that wedge there. So it was really great to see. And that ended up being the only kick return opportunity we got. Cleveland didn't really want to give us any more opportunities after that. So for that reason, my game ball goes to Charlie Jones, Chuck Sizzle, because that ultimately ended up being the difference in the game. So
Absolutely, man. Set the tone immediately. Immediately. Like I said, it's someone. I know that was Phil. I know Phil is 101, 1-0. Excuse me. I know Phil is 1-0 in First Energy Stadium. At that point, I was 2-3. I've been there and I've seen things pile on. So to have a good start, that meant the world to me personally as a fan, and everything just built from there. So shout out to the game. Shout out to the Bengals, obviously. Shout out to Ivy. Ivy, Rumor was closed. Rumor's usually the spot on West 6. Rumor was closed for some reason on game day, but Ivy was in there jumping. I don't know if it's because we got that win, but it was just good vibes in there. Phil was
absolutely.
dance fever. He was dance fever in there, man. Yeah, it's a sight to see. With
Yeah,
that
man. I
being
felt like
said, Phil,
I was in
go ahead.
college, man. The DJ was rocking.
Yeah, DJ was rocking, man. Shout out to him. Even though hey, man, let me tell you, anybody who out there is a DJ or you think about being a DJ, let me tell you one thing. If you play no hands, never, ever, ever, ever skip
Yeah.
Wale's verse. All
Nah,
right, that's a
facts. That's
cardinal. That's a cardinal sin.
that
All right, never
what we
skip Wale's
calling
verse.
what we calling on that illegal motion, ineligible receiver downfield, offsides,
Yeah,
pass interference. That's some
illegal
type of
shift.
penalty. That's a penalty there.
Yes. Not only did he not play Wale's verse, he
He played
skipped over
every
it to go to
verse.
Roscoe's
He
verse.
played every verse but Wale's verse.
Come on, man. What are we doing? What are we doing? But that's neither here nor there. Another great win. The Bengals are now 3-4. We look forward to week 8. Phil, you got any closing words before we get out of here?
Yeah, man. I'm just gonna give a shout out to my pops, the oldest Bengal fan I know. He's continued to instill blind faith in me in this team. So I don't see any reason why we can't continue to go on the run. And like Cam Taylor Britt said, why can't we win the rest of these games? So
Why not?
I'm looking forward to going 1-0 again this week, getting that first home win, and can't wait to see what the energy is like, man. I'm looking forward to it.
I feel like our predictions have been pretty solid. Shout out to school. School hit me up and said, "Hey man, you called it on the pod after that Commanders game. You said Jaden Daniels was like that. And you said we're gonna look back at this and say Jaden's like that. So far, I'm right. I also said a couple weeks ago, do not be surprised if you look up. I think this is when we were 1-4. Do not be surprised if we string together some wins and we look at a 5-4 season by the time we get to the 5-4 season by the time we finish that Raiders game. We're on par for that. Like I said, don't want to get too far ahead. Keep stacking these up week by week. Have that 1-0 mentality. Each week you just want to go 1-0. But we're in good shape, and I'm feeling good about the direction of this team. We knew we can get here. It's just about making sure we execute. Doesn't have to be pretty. Said it a million times. We're going to have to win some ugly games. Most of them are going to be ugly, but we're in good shape right now. What you got, Phil?
Before we close, I just got a one more time. You did it last week. You gave a shout out. Once again, the big dogs, and I'm not talking about the Browns. Hit another 6-leg parlay. The crew love went crazy. It was another wonderful day. This week, I'll be honest. This week was somebody didn't set their timer. Maybe all of us. Rich gave us the alert, and this week we did it in 10 minutes. Last week we did it in 15. This week we did it in 10 minutes. So I wanted to get hats off to the squad. Shout out to Corey. We did it again with the same format, even though me and Corey flipped picks as far as what type of pick we had. Just want to give a shout out to the crew there for staying hot and contributing to the wonderful Sunday that I had personally. So
hold on. Hold on. I appreciate that, Phil. That was a beautiful feeling. To hit 2 6-leg parlays 2 weeks in a row with your two brothers is a wonderful feeling. It's beautiful, especially when you get them in last minute. I finalized that bet at 12:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so literally 6 minutes before kickoff. But forget all that. As great as it was to hit that, my brother Phil, don't ask him for no money, y'all. He ain't got it. He got 4 girls. He got 4 girls and a wife at home. Don't ask him for no money. But my brother Phil hit an 11-leg touchdown parlay.
9-leg.
9-leg anytime touchdown score parlay. Phil hit it. He needed he hit everything in the morning. He needed Brian Robinson and Chuba Hubbard in the afternoon games. The only points the Panthers scored was a 4-yard Chuba Hubbard touchdown. We had a discussion in the group chat. Should he cash it out or should he go? I think he had such a great day that it wouldn't have made sense to cash it out. Your day was already profitable, so you might as well let it ride. And I was so excited to see you hit that. Once again, do not ask him for any money. He ain't got it. But man, that was beautiful to witness, man. So for all the gamblers out there, hopefully you all stay hot as the big dogs are. And with that being said, I think that's a perfect way to end things. We will see y'all next week. Hopefully we're looking at 4-4. Hopefully we're talking about the first home win. And hopefully we're feeling a lot better about where we're going. As I said before, these are your 2 favorite Bengals fans, Philly Phil, Kieron, and for all of y'all out there, one hearty hoo-day.
Hoo-day.